What we gonna do right here is go back. Way back. Back into time.
Welcome back. This is the Better on Paper podcast. It's been a little bit because I've been kind of laid up. I have a sciatica thing, so if you see me squirming, like jumping, like, oh God, I hate my life, that's probably why. But welcome back. It's been a little while, but I just for if anybody's tuning in now, because I don't think anybody watches anyway. But hey, it's just for us. It's fine. I'm Travis. This is
I'm M. You call me Ed.
We're both writers. I write TV show pilots, movies, stuff like that.
I do short stories, novels, self-published, and yeah, that's what I do.
Novels too, though.
Yeah.
Novels. You do novels.
It's all right.
It's all right. Modest. So I have the little link. We're going to put it right at the bottom, somewhere around here. Here?
Probably right there.
He's better at that. So basically, I'll probably put the links up there. So if you want to buy his books, if you want to, there's nothing I have that you can buy. You can't buy anything. You can try to give me money. You can find me wherever I'm at and try to give me some cash because I need it. But other than that, maybe we'll dabble in that. We don't do it for the money. We're doing it because we want to talk. We're very passionate about movies and games and all sorts of stuff and writing especially. I just wanted to talk about really basically like our process. Like me personally, I take a ton of notes on my phone. Back in the day, I used to write it in binders, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Just like if I come up with something, mostly it's music for me. Like I'll listen to music.
Okay. What kind of music?
Oh God, I'm picky, but it's usually like big cinematic stuff. It's usually like
when you're taking notes or when you're actually writing.
No, when I just come up with things.
Oh, okay.
The music makes me come up with things.
Oh,
like
so it inspires you.
It inspires right. Because I'll think of like movie scenes, for instance, like when I thought of one of the scripts I wrote this big sci-fi movie. But I had this big there's just a song called you've heard of Two Steps from Hell. I think we had that conversation. Mm-hmm. Song called Miracles. There's this part where I thought of I was like, two people are gonna meet at this bridge. It's gonna be, they haven't seen each other in forever. They're gonna meet, and then the big part of the song, the crescendo happens, the big booming part of it, and that's kind of where they meet. And I thought of that scene, and that kind of that led to a lot of the rest of that movie in my head anyway. And I was thinking about that scene as that song as I was getting to it and the feeling of the movie, and like music just kind of like I think of the song playing during the scene, and that kind of makes things happen. Yeah. So I mean, it's electronic stuff. It's Iron Maiden. That's my favorite band, Iron Maiden. But hip hop, it can be Snoop Dogg Doggy Style, for instance. I came up with a whole scene because of that.
So old, man.
That's true. I'm old. I like old school hip hop. It's my thing. Early late '80s, early '90s. But there's some things along the way. Ice Cube's new album is amazing, personally. But what about you? I mean, how do you do it?
Well, let's get back to you. Like when you're
yes.
So you put on okay. I want to come up with some notes. You just put on some music and then you're coming up with ideas, or you already have the ideas and you're just growing from that. Like
at the very beginning, when I come up with with the notes.
Where does give me an example. Like how did you get the idea of your screenplay?
Most of the that particular one started with a dream, actually. A couple. That's another thing I was going to say. Music and dreams. Yeah. I had one dream where I was wandering around. We're in the Folsom / Sacramento area, Placerville, if anybody knows, Northern California. So I had a dream once where there was like this big nuclear holocaust. It's just like nukes are going off, and I was at a movie theater. Of course, I dream about these movies all the day long, and I had this just like it's just like ash sky, and like I'm running, and there's this bunker in El Dorado Hills. Actually, there is a real bunker that exists. It's like you can kind of go up there and kind of roam around in it. So I think in that dream I was like, let's go to the bunker. And it's just like, I just had this, the nuclear apocalypse is not anything new, but it was just like this bunker idea. So I kind of wrote a script about, kind of Stephen King-ish with like 4 friends who survive in this bunker against some crazy thing that happens. It ended up not being like nuclear annihilation. It ended up being like more of a alien type of, situation with the kids surviving or the friends surviving. Yeah. But yeah, that came straight up from a dream. And then
Did
music.
you write it down right when you woke up? Like
I did. So I used to have with that script that was in probably like 2008, maybe 2010. Called Earthrise. Just I guess I liked it. And so I used to have it next to my bed, a ton of binders. I would just scribble out notes like, remember Apocalypse and Bunker, remember the Bunker, Eldorado Hills Bunker, Friends, whatever it was. And I don't really remember dreams that often, but sometimes they're very cinematic, and I just like it's not necessarily the concept of the dream, like, oh, we're gonna hide in this bunker. It's like the feeling it gave me, and so I was kind of like that feeling, try to translate that into some sort of story, because you get attached to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the music, and well, I mean it's that I write it down. Now it's the iPhone. I have the notes app. Everybody writes in there. Now I'm just scribbling. I have so many notes from the new script I'm writing. That I'll just so the kernel of the idea, it comes usually sometimes in dreams, sometimes in music. Like when I'm driving, I listen to music and I come up with scenes and I come up with ideas. That's most of the thing. It's coincidentally, I listen to podcasts too much, and when I listen to podcasts, I don't think of anything. Like, it's their ideas, they're not mine. I don't come up with anything when I'm listening to podcasts, which I love podcasts, but it's like not helpful for a writer maybe, or just not me. But I was at a gas station when I came up with one of my TV shows, my action TV shows. That was literally just, I grabbed an energy drink or whatever it was. I walked back to my car and I was like, boom. And I came up with like like I just thought of it. It just came to me. Wow. And then I was like, okay, that's a cool concept. It was more like, I talk too much, but it's like, I'll get this final thing out, which is, I have this thing where, also, I think about things where it's like stuff that I haven't seen in a while. Like for a long time in like the 2010s and stuff like the 2010 area, like in that time period, there were like tons of shows and movies where it's like, and this has been going on forever, where it's like the FBI, the CIA, they don't talk to each other, they hate each other, they don't work together, so nothing ever gets done. You have all these shows, CSI, whatever it is. The FBI comes in and they're just assholes. Nobody works together. They hate them. So that script was like, what if the CIA, the FBI, the local law enforcement, all the, like some of them from them got together and was like, why don't we pool our resources and actually try to do something? Yeah. So I had that in the back of my head, that feeling, and then it kind of just manifested in like this idea, so that was just random. So, I mean, it's my inspiration comes from all sorts of places, but mostly dreams and music.
Yeah. I have a notebook where I keep all my story ideas, and it's not that I'm actually thinking, okay, what can I write about now? I'm not sitting at home saying, okay, let me think of a story. Like, I don't think any, real creator does that. Mm-hmm. It's just when you're driving home, when you're at the gas station, after you get done watching a movie or binge watching a show, you'll get this idea in the back of your head. You're like, oh, boom, you write it down.
Right.
And at first it's just, just a paragraph of just nonsense, right? For me, actually.
Well, do you get inspired by, like, do you watch something and then you say, that was great, but I can do it better, or I can do something like that, or you springboard into something, another idea that comes off of it?
Not necessarily. Yeah. For example, what is that movie with Tommy Lee Jones and what's her name? Oh my God. I hate doing this. Oh,
it happens to us every time. We need IMDb.
Kate Blanchett. They're in the woods. The Missing.
Oh,
The Missing, right?
The Missing. Yeah, you're right. Right. Yes.
I got an idea for a family that moves to the woods. I mean, this is nothing like the movie, but watching this movie gave me this idea. A family moves to the woods, and then there's a monster in the woods. They come and take the daughter. Then the father goes out to try and save it. Then he gets lost, and then the mother goes out to save him. But it's the whole thing. But I wrote a short story off of that idea. So that's just an example of, me watching a TV show or a movie, and I get inspired by these ideas just out of nowhere. Like, it could be an hour later, right after I finish watching the movie, I'll write it down in my notebook.
Right.
So right now I have about 30, 40 pages full of just different ideas.
Yeah.
Some of them might be short story, others might be full-length novels. But let's say I pick one. Okay, this is going to be a winner. This is going to be the one I'm going to work on for the next 6 months, right?
Yeah, because such an investment.
This is a great story. I mean, I fall in love with the story all over again. Okay, let me work on this. So the writing process starts, okay, I have this paragraph of just, what the story's about, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't necessarily listen to music right then and there. I'll just sit in a quiet room and then just think of the story in my head from start to finish. Not really the characters, but I just, I create the world, right?
Right.
The setting. And then I'll do like a little outline from scene to scene to scene. And then from there, I'll take that rough outline and I put it on the computer and, kind of finalize it.
Okay.
And then that's when I create the characters to go into that world.
I think you're more structured than I am.
Yeah.
Because I have inspiration. Like, I don't ever, like, and I'm not doing it where, like, I'm like, okay, music. And then I think, and I don't like sit down and go like, this is my music time where I'm going to think.
Sometimes I listen to music, but I really put on music when I'm actually writing the story. Rather than
really
up with it. Yeah,
man, I can't do that at all.
I can watch Seinfeld actually when I'm outlining a story.
I can't do that at all.
Yeah.
I will. I need complete silence. Can't have my headphones on. I just have to be absorbed. Computer world, and it's hard to start writing or start doing anything. Let's be honest. But the second I'm in it, the second I'm at the computer, and I'm going like 6 to 8 hours can just boom, and I'm just like, oh man, it's 5 a.m. What did I do? Yeah. And
like you said, it's hard to start at first,
start.
But once you get going, it's like you're flowing.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's just it's hard to tell. And I'll listen to pieces of music. If I got something that's hitting me some sort of emotional way, or some kind of scene happens in my head when a particular piece of music or part of a piece of music happens, I'll sit in the car and I'll listen to that little part over and over again, like when I'm driving. Like I won't listen to anything else. I'll just stick on that one little thing. I'm like, there's something here. What is that? Yeah. For instance, God, I was listening to Snoop Dogg. It's always Snoop. It's not always Snoop, but the Shiznit. I was listening to the song The Shiznit, and for whatever reason, there's a particular line of lyric in that one little section in the middle of that song, which is like something very cinematic popped into my head. I think that's the reason why I think Doggy Style is one of the greatest hip hop albums ever, because it's not just like it's not just hip hop to me. It's just weird to say. It's like it's like a world that's being created. Like I love albums that like I even though I've never lived, I don't identify with like anything that's happening in there. It's not like I've never done any of that. I don't live in that place. But for whatever reason, but I can get into his world. I know what his world seems like because of it. It's like any movie. You watch City of God, for instance. Like that's not my existence, but like I can empathize with it. I can get it. Yeah. I know what they're. I know. It's just great storytelling in that way.
It is true hip hop. Today is not hip hop. So it is hip hop.
That's a whole podcast.
It's just today is not. Yeah, today.
Right. I mean,
that's
a million
a whole
people.
Other conversation.
It's a million people, and there would be some arguments. I'm sure there are plenty of. Well, plenty. Maybe 2 or 3 like new hip hop artists that are good. I don't know.
4 guys.
4. You do? Okay. Well, like I said, I like I need the new Ice Cube album. Everything's Corrupt. I've been listening to that a lot, but I'm old school like that, so I don't know. But anyway, okay. So once you actually start writing, how long does it take you to? I mean, you do short stories as well, so it's obviously shorter. But so you do. For anybody out there who hasn't, the biggest reason they don't write or they don't edit or they don't make movies or they don't do anything creative that they might want to do, it's just the fear of finishing things and the amount of time it takes. So for once you patient, right?
Yeah, you have to have patience like a mug.
Oh God, first script I ever wrote. That's a whole story in itself. But it took me 2-3 years maybe to actually finish it. But once it was done, for my first movie that I ever wrote, it was I decided to write this big action adventure World War II time spanning movie that was like in multiple time periods. Like not the whole movie, but like it jumped around in time a little bit. But I'm like, okay, on top of doing the action adventure thing in this huge movie, I'm also going to make it real history. So like, I'm going to have my own fictional history, like revisionist history, but it's like the time periods are real. The people are real. And it was like the most complicated, most difficult script I could have ever chosen for like my first script ever. And once I finished it, like, I was like, I can do anything. Mm-hmm. Like by starting with what was hardest thing I could possibly do. It doesn't matter. People talking in a diner, cool. That's, not even remotely close to what I went through on that first script. So it's like once you finish that, it's like, okay, I can do anything. And I started doing them faster. I started doing it in different genres, and it's just like you got to just get that one thing done, even if it's a short film or a short story. Yeah. Like, what was your first thing you ever wrote? Oh.
Actually, a screenplay.
Really?
Yeah.
I never seen this.
This is back when I gave up on my, dreams of being an NBA player.
God.
Back, way back in the day.
I used to play
15 years ago. So I was like, oh, forget this. I can't even remember what. I've always wanted to make stories and create and things like that.
Sure.
And, of course, my first screenplay was about the basketball. Basketball player.
Right.
And it was like more like a thriller.
Okay.
And I actually turned that into a short story book called The Man in the Crowd, which is also, available on Amazon.
Oh shit! Shit! See what I told you he'd be product placing it all over the place. Good.
But that was good. That was the first thing I ever wrote. Yeah.
And it's out there, right?
It's out there. Yeah.
So have I just not seen that out there? I just never heard of that. If it's a Kindle, it's a Kindle thing.
Yes, it's on Kindle. Yeah.
Okay. Not physical. There's no physical. It is.
I have a physical copy.
Physical. Yeah. I really do.
It's been a while. I'm a self-publisher, so I have to do everything myself.
Yeah.
I may need to revise it. It's been years since I even touched that book. I don't think I've pushed it as much as I should. But,
well, if it's the first, do you think? If you went back and read that, would you have seen growth? Like, I would hope. Like, if you
definitely. Definitely.
Like, would you look back and go, "Oh God"?
I always compare, stuff that I wrote 5 years ago to the stuff that I write now.
I do that with my scripts all the time.
Anytime that I'm feeling down about my skills, like, oh, this is crap, I suck.
Look at your new stuff and look at the old stuff. Yeah.
Just compare, last year's work to this year's, and you'll see a difference, a major difference. That's if you're reading and writing, constantly,
sure,
like I am, then you'll definitely grow in your craft.
Well, my biggest thing for people, when they worry about starting in an endeavor like this, and then it's like, I foolishly, on the first script I ever wrote, the big one, I was like, once I'm done with this, I'm so amazing that I'm going to send it to the first guy. The first guy's going to make it into a movie. I'm set. I don't have to work at whatever it was at the time, Game Crazy, or that's old. I worked at a Game Crazy Hollywood Video, and neither exist anymore. I don't have to work at these places anymore. I'm set. I got this big movie. But the first guy who reads it goes, cool, but not a good script. And you're like, not a good script? What does that mean? And you're like, how can it not be a good script? I'm so amazing. And then if I go back and read it now, it's just like the dialogue is, you think that you're doing good dialogue until you read it out loud. And it's maybe it's good by like, the standards of a lot of shows out there are like decent, but like to make dialogue sound real is actually really difficult, and you have to really practice and you have to really listen, because you don't think that in a show that you're watching, you don't think that the dialogue is like there's really cinematic dialogue which is memorable, like Star Wars or something, but even Star Wars is like, it's like, go over here, kid. Like it's very like a lot of commas and they're repeating words and like things that how actual people talk. Han Solo talks like a normal human being. There are moments like that's a great mix of very stylistic dialogue and dialogue you remember, while also seeming relatable. Yeah. Like he just like Han Solo just walked in. He's a normal guy and just talking.
Off the script. He went on the set and just started.
Exactly. And I think what a lot of movies and TV shows these days do. Not great is what they try to make it 100% real, like us talking now. We're talking, it's real dialogue. If I wrote this down, it'd be how many commas and just hyphens everywhere, and it just be so many repeating and it's like that kind of stuff heightens dialogue. I'm not saying you should use us all the time and stuff like that. I just mean like there's a certain flow to speech that is real, and you have to capture that while also being memorable. Exactly. And what a lot of things nowadays do, Game of Thrones strikes a really good balance of the real dialogue with the stylized. Don't want to get into Game of Thrones again like last time, but I mean, but a lot of things realistically today they try to make the dialogue real, and it's like we're having a real conversation. We are real people, which is good for when you're watching it. It feels real. Mm-hmm. But my problem with that is you don't remember any of the dialogue. Yeah, I can't remember a single word that was in that movie, and that's. I mean, it's just so you have to strike the balance of have to, but it's you're never gonna have a Game of Thrones. You're never gonna have. You're never gonna be Tarantino. Nobody is, but you're never gonna have that overly stylized dialogue, stuff that people remember and repeat, without it being like a little flowery, a little style in there, while also being real. You have to pick your moments.
Exactly. And a trick that I've learned recently is I will base some of my characters on people that I know.
Yes,
so
totally.
I'm hearing them talking, and I'm writing down. I won't say, man, I'm not going to put anybody on blast. But like my sister, I mean, she knows about this.
She's on blast right now.
One of my books, and I know the way she talks, and
right.
I have what she's gonna say in this scene. Okay, how would she say this? You know what I mean? And I write it down, and that's why, in my opinion, it's good to have accents, whether it's country or California, some slang in there.
Try to get the headspace.
Characters with that, so everybody's not sounding the exact same. Every character in your story is not sounding the exact same. You don't even know who's talking.
That's the big problem, by the way, is that you also don't want it to. You want to have a voice in the thing you're writing, script or book or whatever. Like it's good to have like a unique voice. Like okay, this novel or movie sounds like the author or the writer, screenwriter. But also every character can't sound like me.
Exactly.
So many people will screw that up.
Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of fine if you're Aaron Sorkin, and it's just like it's all fast, super dialogue all the time, and all clever. But it's for most people like you can't just have every woman, every man, the plumber sounds just like the stockbroker. They're all clever. They're all amazing. Like you can't. I mean, it's not good if you do that unless the point is it's Aaron Sorkin's dialogue. Mm-hmm. But it's for me, like you said, you got to get into the head of the character, the accent. Well, how do you just do a lot of research?
For what? For
anything. For if you're trying to get into
it depends on the story.
Like you don't know a country guy. Like do you know any country guys and you base it off that?
My family lives in Texas.
Oh shit. Yeah.
So I mean I have friends that have that deep, Texas accent. Right. I don't know anybody that lives in like Mississippi. The country accents are differs, but I know some guys in Texas with some country accents. And I've lived there for a few years, so I've been around it. I'm not just watching movies. Okay, how do these guys sound? How would they sound?
I'm just gonna mimic it. But I mean, if you were writing dialogue for somebody from Mississippi,
if I were writing dialogue, I mean, if I were to do something like that, I would definitely do some research on that.
Like, what would you do? Would you just just Google the accent, Google people? Like, how would you get into the head of a character from Mississippi?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never done anything like that. I try and stay in my lane most of the time.
Well, then that's another thing.
As far as what I know and what I don't know, like I'm writing a space story, and I did like probably
I've never been to space.
I've done like 2 months of just research. Like how they live up there. NASA stuff like that. But I mean, I would definitely do research, but for the most part, I try and stick with what I know. As far as characters go, as far as
people in your real life, that's probably smart.
My real life.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not necessarily me. It's not the way I act, but it's the way I've witnessed other people talk, act, whatever.
So you research concepts, locations, like story stuff. Like if it's going to take place on a space station, you're gonna get the facts of it. You're gonna get
exactly.
You're gonna research that, but you're not gonna research characters. The characters are gonna be people so that you can better make them real.
Exactly. Okay. I feel like if I do research on a character or a certain type of character, it's gonna be like cliche. You know what I mean? I don't want to. It might seem fake instead of real.
Right. Because you haven't interacted with, like, if you research a person on a page, you don't know their mannerisms, you don't know the subtleties of
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to like Google a character. You know what I mean?
Right.
I will Google a name. Like,
Totally.
oh, I need a name for this guy. I'll probably bring up a list of different names or something like that.
Or if a guy's job or something, which
something like that.
How
but
does
as
that
far
work?
as a character, the way he talks, his actions, I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just something that I wouldn't do.
Well, like writing what you know is like what everybody says to do. I mean, there's a lot of authors out there. It's not like George R. R. Martin knows anything about sword fighting, or maybe he does, I don't know. But it's like, it's his fantasy world. He made it all up. So it's not like he can write what he knows in that regard. Maybe he knows fantasy.
That's why I write fantasy. You can do whatever you want. It's no rules in
But he knows
fantasy.
Tolkien though. So I mean, he knows prior fantasy is what it is. He's done a lot of research there. It's like anything else. If you're writing movies and you're going, okay, I want to write a war movie, it's like, well, you might want to watch some war movies or have some in there, kind of how that works.
It'd probably be a good idea.
Probably be a good idea. Well, like with Lord of the Rings, for instance, and we're on fantasy, Peter Jackson's like, okay, well, I want it to look like The Thin Red Line. If you go watch The Thin Red Line, then you go watch the forest scene in Fellowship of the Ring, at the very end of the movie. That looks like the camera speed, like, kind of how it, just the grittiness of it. Looks like The Thin Red Line.
I don't remember the movie. I've seen it before. I don't remember.
You mean Fellowship?
Thin Red Line.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Well, but I've seen it a long time ago, but I don't remember.
But you know the grittiness that I'm talking about in Fellowship, though, right? Okay, so it's like that war movie. It's all there's a lot of close-ups in there. It's their eyes, their face, it's the dirt, it's the kind of shutter speed of when the dirt flies across the camera. It's very stylized. It's very real. It's like Saving Private Ryan in that way too. But you can tell, like for instance. We're talking about directing now and, cinema itself, but not writing, but it's fine. It all kind of gels together in that way. So like, for instance, you ever seen Strangelove, Dr. Strangelove? Mm-mm. Okay. So that is a, for the most part, I mean, it's Kubrick, but for the most part, it's a kind of I don't want to say insane, but it's a little like, it's an out there comedy. And then you get to a point in the movie where troops are coming and now we're fighting them, and it's like the movie switches from like this kind of absurd comedy to like a gritty documentary war movie. And the second it happened, I was like, that's Saving Private Ryan. Holy shit. Because it was like similar framing of the shots even. Yeah. Like the speed of it just over the guy, not the M60, they wouldn't have had that. MG42, the World War II version of that. And they're sitting there and they're doing it just like Saving Private Ryan. And I'm like, Spielberg got that shit. Yeah. He went, I'm going to film Saving Private Ryan like Dr. Strangelove. And it's such a crazy part of that movie that it just changes. Yeah. And it's just the brilliance of that is like, it's perfect. It's the most perfect way to shoot Saving Private Ryan ever, but you kind of get influenced by that without ripping it off. Mm-hmm. You kind of give homage to it while also kind of filming it in that way. You take it, you spin it off in a different way. Yeah. Tarantino, I mean, he kind of does that for a living. But you look back at all that stuff, Star Wars. I mean, I hate to break it to you, if you think Star Wars is 100% real, 100% real, go watch. There's plenty of clips on YouTube where you can see like the influences. Does that make it shitty? No, because it's that great because they take what works from something else and kind of put in this new thing to make it more relatable, because that worked before, so it can work again. Exactly. The real magic trick is to do something that nobody's ever seen. I've never seen these characters before. I've never seen this story before. I've never seen the way it's shot. If you can do that, then you're gonna be a star.
Yeah. Every now and then we'll get like a movie or show like that.
Oh, it's rare. Yeah. It's really rare. I mean, Mad Max Fury Road was like
The Matrix.
The Matrix is perfect.
Everybody copied off The Matrix.
Well,
as far as like the flying scene, the flying
bullet
fighting,
time. Yeah.
Slowing stuff up, all that stuff.
That's a little bit of a bad example, only because that also is Ghost in the Shell.
Are you talking about they stole the story?
The Matrix. Yeah. Not stealing it. Well, I don't know if that's out there or whatever, but
yeah.
No, The Matrix is based off of heavily of like Ghost in the Shell, for instance. So that's another example of ping-ponging, taking something previous like the agents and jacking into like the Matrix itself. The Ghost in the Shell. Yeah. Well, if you watch Ghost in the Shell, there's a lot of similarities to the Matrix. Does that make the Matrix any less original? Mm-hmm. No. It's incredibly good. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. It's really hard for you to pinpoint something that's just brand new. I've never seen that before. Maybe like The Witch. You ever seen The Witch? Like that's the way that's shot, the way that movie feels is. I mean, maybe there's 10 other movies that guy kind of influenced by. I don't know, but I can't think of anything else. No. I don't know. Terminator 2, that's a bad example because there's got a thank you credit in there because I think Cameron borrowed a little liberally from maybe just the design of this guy here. Mm-hmm. But, that's a hard one. I don't know. Anyway, back to the whole writing, thing. Okay, so how long does it take you to finish a short story? How long does it take you to finish a full novel?
I post a lot of short stories on my blog site, msidnorjr.com. And usually I try and keep those. Usually I try to keep those between 1,000 to 5,000 words.
Okay.
I know that's probably going to sound a lot to non-writers out there, but it's not that hard. Mm-hmm. I can do that in one sitting. So let's say like an hour. Mm-hmm. Not counting the prep time as far as like the outline, the idea, everything like that. But sitting down, starting to write, it takes me about at least an hour to 2 hours. 2 hours max to do that. Not counting the editing, just sitting down, writing, and just going.
Do you write in short bursts, like just 2 hours at a time, or do you...
If I'm doing a short story, I can do it in 2 hours and it'll be finished.
Okay.
A novel, I can write from 2 to 3 hours a day, just kind of working on it. I don't go by, let me finish this chapter before the night's over. I just go by what I'm feeling at the moment. Sometimes I'll get to a point where I'll just stop after 50 words. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some days I'll write 50 words. Some days I'll write, 5,000 words. Well, those are rare. Actually, not 5,000. I'll say 3,000.
Well, that's an important thing to remember is that I can sit at the chair for 8 hours per, because I have to write at like 10 o'clock at night, midnight to 5 in the morning. I just, usually that's what I have to do. Kind of get the world out. But, I can take an hour or 2 hours and I can write like 6 to 10 pages in a script, in a movie if I'm really in the groove and I'm going nuts. Or I can spend that 8 hours and I could just have 3 notes because I got a story hurdle that I don't know how to get over and I'm just thinking of stuff. So it's not like it's important to note, I think, that you don't need 8 hours. You don't need to go to work if you're trying to write and you're like, I don't have the time or whatever. You don't have to write 8 hours a day. You can get a lot done in 1, 2, 3 hours as long as it's consistent. As long as you're thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a lot. You can do a lot of damage with that. I mean, even if you do like 2 pages. I'm writing 2 pages in a script or a book, for instance. 2 pages a day. I mean, that's not. It's when it really stacks up, it's not a lot of days to get that done. And some days it'll be 5 pages, some days it'll be 10, some days it'll be 1, some days it'll be 0. You just have to kind of chug it away. But as long as it makes you happy and as long as it's fun while you're doing it, you kind of force yourself to sit down. But once you get in the groove of writing, if writing isn't fun, if you're sitting and you're writing and you're not into it, then stop. Because, it's like, that's how you know you're a writer, you're really thinking about it. The real writers, I think, they think about it constantly, but then they don't write. They're just like, they're just constantly thinking about it, and then sitting down and writing is probably hard. But once they do sit down, it's like a never-ending, it just spirals into this kind of fun vortex.
This is my philosophy. Like, when you're writing, especially if it's the first draft, I know a lot of writers that will write and then they'll read over and edit it right then and there.
Yeah.
To me, I just write and I'll leave the editing for when the first draft is done. Because when you sit down and just write, it goes much smoother, much faster. I mean, it may be crap, but at least you're moving along. You're getting the story out of your head. Right. You don't want it to stay in the back of your head because things can change 1,000 times. You'll have the story, and by the time you get to the end, like 1,000 things have changed. And the idea is just to get the idea out of your head and onto paper or onto the screen. So
way easier to edit than it is to write.
A lot of times I'll tell other writers, not necessarily write, but it's just people say, how do you write so fast? Like, how do you get this done so fast? It's because I'm just writing. I'm not thinking about grammar mistakes, punctuation, stuff like that. I'll save that for editing, and editing it is a lot easier because you have the story done, you have it finished as far as the draft.
Sure.
And I mean, of course, you'll tear it up once you start editing.
Yeah.
But
right.
that's a lot easier than, writing and editing at the same time. It takes a lot longer too.
Yeah, that's actually a problem I have, which is if I'm writing a movie, I'll read back through it before it's done.
Yeah.
And I'll edit the shit out of it.
You want it to be perfect as possible.
But I just think your way of doing it's probably better. Just getting the story done first. Yeah. And then going back and editing it as you go because it's way easier to edit. Yeah. I can't I'll come up with notes, I'll come up with things, and I'll obsess over. I'll read it again and I'll obsess over dialogue not being right. And it's like I can't move on until the dialogue is perfect. And then 6 months later, if I'm lazy on it or I just hadn't finished it or I'm doing another project or whatever, I'll come back and I'll read that piece of dialogue that I obsessed over and I'll change it again. It's like ridiculous, but. The way it's done is that you read sections over and over again, and you're like, I'm never changing that. Like, it just doesn't feel like it needs to be changed. Yeah. That's how it's, usually you want to do draft after draft after draft until you are just reading your script like it's somebody else's, and you get to the end of it, and you're like, fuck, I didn't have any changes, because I'm going to be the worst critic of it myself, before anybody else is. I think you can also be too precious with it, and, you can not see the flaws.
Yeah. You gotta find. The trick is you have to find somebody that will tell you how crappy it is.
Oh, that's my wife. That's my wife.
You gotta find someone to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to send it to a bunch of fans or family, like, oh, this is so good, this is so great, this is awesome. Of course, that feels good, and you're happy to share it. But you have to find somebody that will tell you the truth, even though they say, okay, I'm telling you the truth. It's really good. I'm not lying. It's awesome. Yeah. It's good.
Right.
You have to find somebody that will tear it up. Tear it up.
The flip side of that, the truth thing, is that you'll also have people who will read it, and there's some weird psychological thing with people where they'll read it and they'll shit on it. You can give it to people who will shit on it just to be like, you didn't do this. You like they can't give you any kind of praise for it. They just have to be negative about it. Mm-hmm. There's something about certain people where they read it and they're negative and nothing's good about it. Oh, I don't care. And it's like a weird thing. Like, I didn't write this. I can't let you have this moment. I don't know. Yeah. And
that's weird. Why you got to find somebody that you respect, I guess. You know what I mean? You're going to get genuine, criticism. They care about you. They love you. They respect what you're doing. They're rooting for you, but at the same time, they're telling you, okay, these are the problems with this. Right. This is how you can make it better.
And you have to have somebody who knows how to make it better. That was the other part of that. A lot of people will read it and they're not writers. They don't know what's fucking better.
I usually find somebody. I have a friend back in Texas. Yeah. She reads a lot of books. She reads a lot. She's not necessarily a writer, but she reads, and she reads mostly fantasy.
Sure.
And I'll send her like a chapter or two, and then she'll point out, oh, you need to do it this way, or this would be better this way, stuff like that. And so I mean, that's the thing. You just got to find somebody that the respect goes both ways, and they're giving you genuine criticism, like constructive criticism.
It's rare to find that.
It is
to find that person who's not only good but can give you the respect, and it can also give you the praise too. Yeah. Because how something's really good is somebody reads it and they text you right away. See, there's certain things where you can usually tell how somebody thinks of something, because it's like most people, if they thought something was amazing, they're gonna text you right there and be like, "Holy shit, this is so good," because it's like weird that somebody did something amazing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like either a line of dialogue. Mostly for me, it's mostly dialogue. Maybe they're just blowing smoke. I don't fucking know, but. They'll pick out a piece of dialogue and they'll send you that, and usually that's how something's really good and something's really working, because people are generally excited to tell you that something really resonated with them. Mm-hmm. So it's like some people are just like, they just don't have time. Reading scripts and reading books, I'm sure for people is like fucking so tedious, because it's like, oh god, so many scripts, especially if you're in LA. It's like, how many scripts am I going to read? But I wrote a script with my wife. And going back to writing dialogue for people, I had to write dialogue for my wife in real life, taking stuff that she actually said, some stuff that she didn't actually say, and then having her read my interpretation of her as a character. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't her on the page. It was, you've read this, so you know. But I mean, it's a character that's based off her who's not her, but it's obviously, you know, I'm writing it off of her. So it's like she'll read it, and it's like if I write something, and she's there with me, she's not really writing like she's writing it because she's reading it and giving lots of notes, and like giving dialogue opinions and having new dialogue and stuff like that. But I mean, she would have opinions on the dialogue that I wrote, and she'd be like, I wouldn't say that. And it's like, you don't know people all 100%, even your own wife. Like, how do you, like, I mean, it's hard if, like, because I don't know how I would react to if she was writing me talking. I'd be like, oh, don't sound like that. You know, you could be like that too. But I mean, it's difficult when you need to get that person's, like, essence right while also kind of making them flawed, while also not making them super angry. Well, that's like, you know, if it's my wife, it's a little different. But do you worry about that when you write people you know? Do you just expect that they'll never see it or hear it?
It's not really based. It's not really based on them. It's just I will take pieces,
little pieces.
Yeah,
okay.
Like for my sister, for example, my sister, I'll just take the way, you know, she would talk. Character looks nothing like her. You know, just I would take like I don't think I've based any characters on actual people as far as the way they talk, the way they look, the way they
just
act.
Little
it's
bits.
Just little bits and pieces like that.
For the pirate short story you wrote, and you had very convincing pirate dialogue. Mm-hmm. As by far my favorite part of that was like the great pirate dialogue, and I was like, you don't know any pirates? How did you do this?
I don't.
Like, how did I mean? Did you just like just kind of just imagine it, or
I forgot the name of the book. I have this book, The Pirates of the Sea or something like that. It's just like true stories of pirates, and of course, Pirates of the Caribbean is probably one of my favorite movies.
The first one,
all of them.
All of them?
I like all of them.
Okay. But I mean, but your favorite movie is not the rest of them. Your favorite one would be the first one, or you're just saying the whole series?
Favorite one is the first one.
Okay.
But the entire series, I love the entire series.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I've always wanted to do something like that, you know, with sharks also.
Sure.
You know.
Oh, God, I have like 3 shark movies in the hopper. In my notes, I got like so many, just for whatever reason, I love a shark. Anyway, I'll get to that.
Yeah, but I had lots of fun doing that. I did little research on pirate dialogue, you know, what the ships look like, what they call the ships, like some stuff like that. And then I had a lot of people read before I actually published it.
Right. I read 3 chapters of it, I think, before you published it.
Yeah. So, I had lots of fun with that. Obviously, those characters are based on nobody I know.
But, sometimes it's just, you know, you get inspiration and you read a book, you kind of know how the pirate's essence and you think about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think people mistake about certain writers or just writers in general, they think that the second they hear you're a writer, you're like, they're like, I got a story for you. Here's a story for you. And I was like, every time I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but I got like 45 stories in my back pocket that are ready to go right now that I could do. You know, I have so many movie ideas and so many TV show ideas that are just like written down that are you know, they're concepts, or they're a little bit more than concepts, or whatever. I mean, I wrote 15 pages to a Streets of Rage script. I want to make the Streets of Rage movie. I love that game, and I want to make an actual good video game movie. So it's little bits and pieces of here all over the place. But I mean, just for all the people out there, just know that writers, the problem is not the stories. We got the stories. You know, we don't want your half-baked idea. Because you're like, I came up with this idea, like, this movie about talking sharks, and then you're going to just tell that to me, and I'm going to go write it, and then you're going to take credit for the whole thing, even though I did all the work. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. Anyway, have you ever had, I know this isn't about the money. This isn't about the money, but you're a self-published author. Would you recommend that as a way to go for people? Or do you think the old way of getting a publisher is like almost impossible now and like not worth it?
I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
I think self-publishing is like a whole new game now, like, because everybody's doing it, and it's so easy to do it.
What does that entail?
It's so easy. You could just get on Amazon, make an account, and publish your book.
Okay.
This is not to. I mean, I'm a self-publisher, so I'm letting you know it's easy, but it's hard. There's so much trash out there as far as self-published books. I've read a few.
Right.
So it's hard for people to take self-published books seriously because there's so much, it's trash that kind of supersedes all the good stuff.
It's like a Redbox movie. It's like so much out there.
It's movies on sci-fi, but
oh god, here we go.
But I mean, let me tell you my reasons because people have different reasons. I self-publish because I want 100% of the credit. I don't want anybody taking my book and putting a new cover on it, changing the ending, the names of characters. I've heard stories about traditional publishers.
That's the movies too.
I don't want this cover. I want a different cover. I don't like this ending. Maybe you should try it this way. Mm-hmm. I want total oversee of everything in my story. You know what I mean? I don't want anybody to change it.
You want 100% control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want 100% control of it.
You want...
and maybe it might be a little bit... maybe it might be a tiny bit afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
Don't get into movies. Don't get into movies if you fear rejection.
I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm not afraid of rejection. I'm sure everybody has that fear of them, but I mean, it's probably a little bit of that, but mostly is I just enjoy to write.
Sure.
I want creative control of everything that I do, and I mean I just love writing. It would be nice to make some money off of it. It'll be nice. Yeah, it'll be dope to make some money off of it. But right now in my head, I just love creating these stories and putting them out there for people to read.
How do you get them to? How do they become Kindle form? Like, what do you do? Just give them like a PDF or something? Like, how does that work?
Usually, there's ways I can make it free for people to download, or I can give them a code. Once I publish
well, but I mean, okay, you got your pages, and it's in, whatever, Microsoft Word or whatever, however you're writing it. How does that become a digital book? Like, how did
there's a certain format.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to.
How do you upload it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can. There's a certain format where you can change the dimensions of the Microsoft Word document. Of course, you put it in like a PDF, and you upload it to Amazon.
And then they kind of put it into that Kindle format for you.
Yeah, they'll show you. They'll show you how it would look on an iPhone, how it would look on an Android, how it would look on a Kindle, an iPad. So, but basically, it's just a certain format of the Microsoft Word that pretty much, makes it a Kindle book.
So people shouldn't be afraid of self-publishing. That's an easy way to go.
No, yeah, it's an easy way to go. But I don't want to. I'm really against people who just self-publish or get books out there for money, and I feel like a lot of people are just publishing just say, oh, I want a movie deal, I want somebody to see this, I'm doing this for money. So I don't want to promote it like that. I want people to be.
You want people to come to you and kind of make it.
Yeah, not necessarily come to me. I want people to actually love writing, be in it just, for the art of it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But you're still going to advertise yourself, right?
Of course you want to make money. I'm not saying you don't do it for not money, but don't let that be the only reason.
Or the first reason.
Exactly. I know somebody that doesn't, they want to write romance books because that's what's hot right now.
Yeah, you're fucked if you do that.
Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, there's 1,000, romance books out there, and they want to do it just because, I'm going to do this because this will sell. It's, it's popular right now. But that's not really what they want to do. They want to do something, like, crazy and off the rails.
If it's not their passion, they're not going to make something awesome anyway. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
You'd have to really. I mean, it's got to be pretty rare that somebody goes, "Okay, this is hot right now, so I'm going to make this story just work," and then it becomes this phenomenon. Yeah, that's got to be rare. There's no way. I mean, maybe it's happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just having so much fun writing that I forget to market myself, and I should.
That's a good way. If you're happy doing it, that's
right
number one.
Right now, I'm just really enjoying myself.
Okay.
So maybe I don't know, when I get rid of my fear of public speaking and being in public. I'm such an introvert.
Getting better. Come on.
An introvert. I don't want to I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk to people.
No,
I just want to be in my hole and write. And hopefully 1 billion people will see it.
That's the goal, right? You want to be George R. R. Martin or Stephen King. You want to just go off, right? More so George R. R. Martin because he takes a long time, but just sit in the cave on the old ass computer, write it down, just have 1 million people read it.
Every time I get a notification on my phone of George R. R. Martin, it's not Ice and Fire. It's some other book that he published. Like, come on, dude, what's going on? Like, he's publishing like...
It's writer's block.
Yeah.
It's writer's block. He's got writer's block, and now he doesn't know where to go because it's like the show came out. Now he's like, I feel like he puts on a front of it'll be what it's going to be, but he's got writer's block, and that's fine. We all do. You know, or you just, you know, it's just, you want things to be perfect, but at the end of the day, editing is number one. You're going to edit the shit out of your book, your script. If you, you know, I've done this before where I've written a script and I've, you know, front to back, it's like 90% of the way there on your first draft. And that's amazing. That's great. You want to strive for that. But then that last 10% can take forever, you know, the last little 10% of trying to make it perfect, trying to get it all the way there. And, you know, and then you might show up to Paramount Pictures or whatever. God willing, they even talk to you, or you know somebody who can get in there, or you have an agent or whatever it is. But, and they maybe, you know, it's also it's okay to take notes. You just have to identify which notes are the good notes and which notes are full of shit and will ruin your thing. This is the way I think of it. If this is my hypothetical scenario where, because I did this a little bit when I was working on the reality TV show, but if I was to make a movie or like a fictional show for like whoever, Netflix or whatever it is. Netflix is a bad example because they don't give notes so often, but like whatever, Universal, who knows? So if you're making the thing, if my story structure is intact and my characters are intact and all the arcs that I've laid in place, if all of that stuff is there, then changing little lines of dialogue, changing this character from a guy to a girl, you know, if it's even written that way in the script, changing the race of a character. I mean, to me that stuff, as long as it's not written, like if it's not a part of the story, like a character arc, and it screws with that somehow, then that's fine. I think if you have a great story structure, if you have a great characters and the way that the story starts and it ends and they've kind of gone through a journey and then they succeed and all that stuff is there, then quibbling over like this particular piece of dialogue, like a joke or whatever it is, to me is not worth it. And I don't even care. Like, I can write a new piece of thing. If they're not into that, I can write, like, if you're a writer, you can sit there and you can be like, okay, how about this joke? I can write 10 more things that are like it. Some lines of dialogue maybe you feel are iconic in your head. Yeah. So you're like, I got to keep that because that's going to be on the poster. And I guess maybe that day will come where you're like, this is so strong, I got to keep it. For the most part, though, I think you can make something amazing. And if you're a good writer, you can be a team player in that way and take a note and make something better. Unless the note is like, okay, those two, they need to have sex now, because we need more of that in our movie. Yeah. You're like, okay, that's complete horseshit. It doesn't matter. You know, just take the good notes from the bad notes if you have the ability to do so. But, I mean, you got to think that all writers, all authors, all of the big successful Spielberg movies, all of those people at some point said, no, I'm doing it my way. You're wrong, I'm right. And they went rogue. And then they got creative control because somewhere along the way, either somebody trusted them or they just said, no, my way is it. And they won that battle. And they just put up a little bit of a fight. And you got to do that too sometimes. Yeah. But not you. You don't have to do that because you're self-publishing. Exactly. Nobody can tell you what to do.
Exactly.
Oh, my God. Well, you know, I think the important thing to think here as we sign off is if you want to go out there and you want to write, I assure you, even if it's a short story or a poem or whatever it is, if it's a movie, a short film, second you go front to back and you get done with that thing, if when you got done with it, you enjoyed the process of doing it, you're probably going to keep going, for one. But getting that first thing done is all it really takes to know if you're a writer and you can do it if you want to finish it. It seems less daunting once you get that first thing done. Yeah. I mean, before we go, when you were playing basketball, you weren't a writer when you were playing basketball, right? Mm-hmm. What made you want to originally start writing? Like, did it just pop in there, or
I think it just came out of nowhere. It's not like, oh, I'm done with basketball, let me find something else to do. It wasn't anything like that. It was so long ago. It just came out of nowhere. Like, oh, I have this idea for a basketball player, high school basketball star.
Sure.
And I love movies. I watch movies like crazy. And let me turn this into a movie. This is an idea for a movie.
Yeah.
And.
But how long did you sit with that idea?
About a year. So
you didn't do anything with it. You were just thinking about it.
I was just thinking about it, and this was during the middle of the basketball season where I had this idea, and after the season ended, I was like, this can be a dope movie, right?
And you're like, no one's gonna make it. I gotta do it.
No one's gonna make it. Let me get it out there, right? Let me write. It's
the thing that I want to see.
And I went into it not thinking, okay, how is anyone gonna see this screenplay? How is anyone gonna see this story? Right. I'm not gonna just send it. To Hollywood by mail, and this is so great. Yeah. Mind you, I had no skills in writing.
Okay.
Barely went to English class in high school. I hated English. I hated reading, actually.
I mean,
that's a whole nother thing, but I think I finished the story. I had these thoughts during the middle of me writing this. So I finished the script.
Okay. How long was it?
I can't remember.
Was it a full-length 120-page script, or was it shorter? Or
I don't remember how many pages, but I did do a lot of research on how scripts looked and how
So you formatted it.
Yeah, I formatted it properly.
So you probably got around there.
The writing was not good at all because I'm not a writer. I think the story was great, but I'm not a writer. And then that's when I started really, teaching myself how to write.
Sure.
How to build these worlds, how to make it, pop off the paper. And then that's when I started saying, maybe I could just turn this into a book. And then before I even started writing a book, I started to read a lot. I read a lot of short stories. I read a lot of, I was really into comic books back then, so I was reading more of those. So that's how that happened.
Well, the second that you decided that you wanted to turn the thought that you had for a year and put it on a page and do it yourself, the second you started typing that, that's you're a writer. Anybody is at that point.
I felt good.
You just are a writer.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You making something great on page doesn't, that doesn't necessarily make you a writer. If you go, I'm a writer and I write. If you actually put things down, if you actually finish things,
that's what
even if you write the shittiest thing ever.
Say I'm an inspiring writer. No, just write. Type a few things. You're a writer. You can aspire to be an author. Aspire. I'm sorry. Aspire to be an author, but you can't. There's no such thing as aspiring writer.
You just are a writer. The second you start doing it, you finish it. Doesn't matter if it's just for you or if one other person enjoys it. That's writing, and as you get better, you jump up to a professional writer if you get paid for it. There's a good quote by Stephen King that I wanted to mention, which was, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically like if you can pay your rent or you pay a utility bill or you pay any level of like adult bills with your writing, then he considers you a good writer because somebody along the way gave you some sort of money, whether it was $200, whatever it was. I paid my bills for a good year and a half with just my writing and story ability. And it's just like, if you think about it like that, if you're paying any level of bills with your art, that is one of the hardest things, I won't say ever because there's coal miners and people who work on roofs, but I'm just saying that like taking your creativity and turning it into money is one of the hardest things from a profession standpoint, other than hard labor or the military, or, you know what I'm saying, instead of that stuff. But it's one of the hardest things to do for a civilian, for any normal person. You consider yourself, even if it's $200, even if it's not, even if you're not making money. But when you jump into the professional level, if you can make any level of money at it, if you're thinking, oh, I suck, you make some money off your publishing, right? Mm-hmm. You do. Mm-hmm. And you pay bills with some of it, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're doing that all by yourself.
Not and that monthly, but I paid some bills.
But that's what I'm talking about. Any level of that makes you, you're ahead of the game, more ahead of the game than most.
Yeah.
And that's something to be proud of for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's just a mindset thing. But once you get that one thing down on paper and finished and out there, it's going to cascade into other stuff. And if you want to keep going, eventually someone's going to care. Someone will care along the way. I've written 10 scripts. I got one reality TV show out of 2 of those scripts because the producer of Deadliest Catch I met randomly. He read 2 of my scripts. He went, "You can tell stories." I went, "Cool." And then he made me a story producer on his show. That's one thing that happened to me in my life. I want to make movies. I want to make TV show pilots. But you just have that content. You're just like, you never know. You're going to come across somebody. Don't be cynical about it. It'll never get seen. Just talk to people. Make
sure you have thick skin, too.
Thick skin,
There's going to always be somebody that does not like it. I mean, whether they're doing it purposely or it's just not for them. They're
family members, friends,
They're going to be somebody to crap on your story. No matter how great it is, you will have one person say something bad about it. So make sure you have thick skin and you can take it.
I wrote a Western TV show pilot once. Gave it to a Paramount Pictures executive. She's like, "I don't like Westerns." 2 lines in, 1847. She was like, "Nope, I'm out."
There you go.
Doesn't matter. The whole rest of the time, all the time you spent, how amazing that script is, she doesn't like Westerns. And, that's kind of how it is. But so, I mean, it is what it is. But the point I'm trying to make is don't get discouraged. Keep moving. Keep doing your little thing. Self-publish if you have to. It's a good way to, if you're feeling rudderless in life, writing or just being creative, making your little thing. For some people, that's enough. It's made me a happy person writing my 10 scripts, and I want to get out of my day job and I want to make scripts for real. I want to make movies and I want to do that stuff. And just the thought of writing the next script and seeing what happens and just reading it myself and going, "It's pretty good." Giving it to my wife and she goes, "Man, this is, not bad." There's no real, better joy for a writer or just a creative person than that.
Exactly.
So anyway, with that, we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff every week. Hopefully, now that now that I can sit for longer than 30 minutes without wanting to kill myself, I'm getting better. So we'll hopefully get them down more frequently. I'm going to have a little gaming podcast with a friend of mine. And I know you game some, but kids and stuff, it's hard to game. No, I don't. Well, I do. I try.
Watch The Boys so we can talk about it.
The Boys. That's what. Right. He wanted me to watch The Boys, the show.
Yes.
Amazon, right?
Yes. I want to say it's 10 episodes. I'm not sure.
10 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many movies and TV shows that we want to review, that we want to talk about. So many things in writing with those shows. What makes them good? What makes them there are shows out there where the writing's okay, but there's something else about it. Maybe the music's good.
And I want to say it's not based on anything.
Yeah.
I think it's just
originality.
See, there we go. That's what we need. That's what we need.
So we'll be talking about that kind of stuff. And, if anybody watches, even if there's 20 views on these videos, we like making it. We like talking about the stuff. And that's why we do it. So anyway, for me, Travis Lisher, that's my last name.
See you guys. I'm mad.
All right. Well, hold on real quick. Full name for the books.
M. Sidnor Jr.
M. Sidnor Jr.
There you go.
And I'm Travis Lisher. You can't find any of my stuff, but you can see me on a podcast, and maybe someday you'll see a movie of mine. If you want to Google some or go on YouTube and see some clips from the TV show I made, it's called The Hell and High Water. Hell, ampersand, high water, one word.
An actual TV show.
It's an actual TV show. It aired on television. I'm going to stop saying that at some point. I feel like it's if anybody cares. If anybody cares. My YouTube page is called Smoke On Now Productions, and you can see kind of the short films I made and, just struggling, little stupid videos trying to figure out how to write dialogue and, how to hold the camera and how to make stuff happen. We're all learning, and anybody can do it. You can do it. You too. So for us too, good luck. This is us from our nerdery saying goodbye.
All right,